This episode offers psychosocial education designed to inspire and motivate our listeners. The information provided does not constitute a therapeutic relationship nor a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, call 911, go to your nearest emergency room, or for listeners in the United States, text 988 for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Warning, this episode contains brain food that will lead to improved emotional and social intelligence. Thanks for tuning in to Harvesting Happiness today for a healthy serving of consciously prepared brain food. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen, your host. Since 2010, we've been broadcasting sound ideas for better well-being. Each week, we spotlight diverse thinkers and doers who are contemporary trendsetters and change agents, devoting their lives to creating a better world. I invite you to listen and change how you think about human happiness. Our award-winning content is fresh, optimistic, and purpose-driven media that promotes well-being from the inside out. This episode is part of the Good Citizens Election Season Survival Guide to Restoring Common Sense and Sanity in a Crazy World, produced in collaboration with renowned, fair-minded subject matter experts who provide strategies that enhance critical thinking, increase civic engagement, and foster healthy pleasure to boost personal well-being and relationship satisfaction. You can also discover more unique bonus content at More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness on Substack and Medium. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever you are. Thanks for joining me on today's show, where we are exploring the power of human connection, the soul of our social architecture. My guest is Allison Pugh, who is a professor of sociology at Johns Hopkins University and the 2024-25 Vice President of the American Sociological Association. She writes about how people forge connections and find meaning and dignity at work and at home. Allison's work has been widely published in The New Yorker, Time Magazine, The New Republic, Aeon, the Harvard Business Review, and more. Professor Pugh builds a compelling case for the preservation of human work in an increasingly automated and mechanical world. Her newest book is titled The Last Human Job, The Work of Connecting in a Disconnected World. Welcome, Allison. Thanks for joining me on the show today.
Sure thing. And thanks so much for having me. This is an honor to be a part of what you try to do here. So yeah,
thank you.
Glad to be, one of on your roster. So I started this because I was interested in the phenomenon of how people see each other and how important that work is. And speaking personally, I'm the youngest of 5 children, and in I would say, overall loving family. I was not very carefully seen,
Oof,
and,
I bet. Just by birth order.
Exactly. But I really had that kind of profound experience when I got to grad school. And my advisor at the time used to say, "I want you to sing your song." And my experience of grad school was her essentially working with me to try and elicit what really mattered to me. And that was so profound. And it's something I also do as a PhD advisor, is try and see, my grad students don't work on my work. They work on their work, and figuring out what work that is part of my job. So that process, which is a form of teaching, close teaching, involves kind of seeing the other, reflecting back to them what you know about what you're seeing about them, and having them kind of either correct it or agree, or, it's a kind of interactive, deeply interactive process. And in doing that, and also in doing it as part of in-depth interviews, which is another way I do my research, I started to just see this kind of practice was vital for all kinds of economic work happening across our economy, from, therapists, obviously, but also to, all kinds of teaching, coaching, et cetera, anything involving any kind of advice. You can't just throw advice at someone unless you know what they're about, what they're looking for, how they're trying to change, et cetera. Primary care physicians, managers, high-end
Yeah.
sales. Like the list is really long. So I started this book really interested in kind of plotting how far this extends. And, labor economists recognize this. They have decided, they say we're moving from a thinking economy to a feeling economy. And so one could say I was interested in kind of how far that feeling economy went. But at the same time, and here's the other half of the book, I was interested in the kind of central problem of emotional connection, which is how do you scale it up?
Yeah.
And how do you make it systematic? How do you control the endless labor costs of having this kind of privilege of deeply connected, emotional, kind of labor between two people? So I was looking around, this is around 2015, and most of the people that were asking that same question were actually AI engineers. And that's
Mm.
how this book came to be.
Wow. Right. And AI engineers are endeavoring to systematize or streamline the human factor, right, through machines, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet there's some things that cannot really be replaced by a machine.
Well,
Try
that's
as we
something,
might.
right? Exactly. Well, that's something that people disagree about. And when I was starting this book, I was pretty agnostic about the issue. I was interested, the argument for mechanizing, kind of human connection is there are several, and engineers are using all of these. You'll have heard all of these in the kind of hype that surrounds AI. But the first one is it's better than nothing. Like if people aren't getting good therapy, if they aren't getting good teaching, who are we to deny them access to it if it comes via machine? Machines are, cheaper and more widely available potentially. So I was kind of that argument struck home, and I was part of that. Like who would deny them? Of course, you want to spread access. The trouble is, and this is a kind of position I came to after years and years and years of research with, score interviews and observations, hundreds of hours of observations with people who do this work, as well as many interviews with engineers. I came to think that we need to we need a term for this work so we can talk about it because I'm talking about this reflecting, deeply emotional kind of attunement to the other that underlies all kinds of work. Lawyers do this, et cetera.
Yes.
Um, we need a term for that because it's really an engine for the things we value, like whether a kid learns algebra or whether someone can heal their chronic illness or whatever. So I wanted a term for it and I labeled it, or I came up with the idea of connective labor as something that people do when they are, doing this deeply interactive work of seeing the other and being seen. And then I started to think about how its, value, its, what it produces, how people do it. And I started to realize that there are things about it that are, as you say, utterly irreplaceable.
Yeah. The idea of the surrogate or the intermediate machine being the intermediary as the better than nothing, I totally get. But of course, and this humanness, right? The ability to look at somebody in the eye and feel that you're being heard has an irreplaceable feeling, right? Like a visceral response as humans that we have to one another that I don't know can be replaced by a machine.
Exactly. And I can go into that, but first I
Yeah.
want to help your listeners by giving them the answer to the better than nothing kind of rationale. Because I'm not about denying,
Right.
marginalized or low income or, disadvantaged populations access. It's that is using technology to solve a problem that we have created, one could say politically. So
Yeah.
they don't have access to good, if they don't have access to a particular service, it's because we have decided that, by essentially crowding public clinics and public classrooms. These are staffing decisions and funding decisions that we have made that we are trying to solve with technology. So that's the first answer, that this is a kind of false solution to a constructed problem. But the second answer is that if we kind of consent to that rationale, it's better than nothing. We are hurtling towards a world in which rich people are seen by humans, and those often those very people that are doing the seeing are themselves seen by bots. And that's a kind of profoundly disturbing inequality that I don't want baked into our society at all.
Yeah. So it's who's also caring for the caregivers or the providers of services, and there are not enough resources to support everyone, is what I think I'm hearing you say.
Well, that's the rush. I mean, that's how we've come to this problem, by this kind of, I would say, a language of scarcity. But I believe this is a political decision that we made before the problem, to create this problem. But I actually think you can fully fund public schools. You can fully fund public clinics. It's a decision not to. And in kind of compressing the labor and making it so strapped for the people who are working in those environments, we are kind of crippling or handicapping their capacity to offer really good human to human connective labor.
One of the talking points is what goes wrong when we prioritize data metrics and standardized practices over connection. If somebody doesn't realize that if they've always been automated or been in a system that automates how they're being handled, do they necessarily know what's missing?
That's a really good question. And I'm going to say yes. I actually have interesting data or, stories to tell about people on both ends of the interaction with regard to exactly that question. The first is about, when I say people on both ends, I mean the worker and also the recipient or whatever.
Yes.
So I'm talking about the teacher and the student, or the therapist or the client, that kind of thing. So, do clients understand what's missing? They really do.
Yeah.
Here's an example. And before I go in that example, I want to address something that is kind of lurking and we haven't articulated yet. And that is the relationship between kind of data and metrics and efficiency norms happening at the workplace and automation and AI, because those things are both in my book and they're deeply related. But I talk about both of them, and people might be confused about, why I thought we were talking about AI. Why are we now talking about data analytics or something like that? They're related because essentially they're all about trying to scale up or really control labor costs and impose efficiency on these very humane, human-centered, interpersonal service jobs. So we know this from this is what we're talking about when we're talking about teachers having to collect data on their students, doctors filling out the electronic health record. This is the kind of data kind of primacy, the priority given data collection in these human connective labor jobs that start to actually degrade those jobs. So this is how it's related to AI, because as those jobs get degraded, you start to kind of think the job's a little robotic anyway. Let's just give the machine this part of it. And it's not as much of a catastrophic loss. It's a slippery slope, I would say. And so they're deeply related. That's the first thing I want to say. Yeah.
Can we give an example of that? Like something comes to mind and I want to make sure I understand what you're explaining. When I go for my annual physical, the doctor who I absolutely adore she is typing
Right.
as we're conducting the exam,
Yeah.
and because she has to document and chart what goes on in the exam. And she whines about it. I mean, I've
Yeah.
gone to her for a long time. So I'm wondering if that those kinds of data inputs can be enhanced by AI in a different
Hmm.
way, right? Where
Hmm.
she's actually looking at me, touching
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
shoulder, and we're having a conversation about my healthcare concerns. And, that robot over there is doing the charting,
Beautiful. And you've actually put your finger on an actual excellent use case for AI.
Yes.
That's actually happening right now. I would say
Fantastic.
doctors are burning out.
Yeah.
Primary care,
Therapists.
we're losing primary care physicians who have, spent years on and, hundreds of thousands of dollars on their training, and we are losing them because we are forcing them to also do data entry. And they are their hearts are breaking
Yeah.
because they got into this for this kind of deeply relational work, and it's being kind of increasingly squeezed into these tiny incremental pieces where they're having to like do all this charting and then like, oh yeah, so how are you? And they never get to it. It's actually it's they are very articulate about how dehumanized they feel their patients are by this phenomenon. But you are completely right.
The good
In
news
some
is,
cases, the good news is AI is being used now in certain places as a scribe and performing the scribe function. And I would say, and this is for your listeners, I am not a Luddite. I am not anti all AI. I use it.
yes.
I vaccinate myself and my children. I believe in science. Like it's just that I want us to kind of pay very close attention to when AI is replacing or kind of impeding human connection and relationship. But in this use case, it's actually a great example of
Yeah.
something I'm all in favor of. And doctors I've heard are really, I've heard only positive things from the ones that I've talked to about it.
Let's take a pause. And when we come back, we will continue the conversation with Professor Allison Pugh. She is the author of The Last Human Job, the work of connecting in a disconnected world. To learn more, please go to AllisonPugh.com, on X at Allison_Pugh, on Facebook, Allison J. Pugh, Instagram, Allison Pugh 2. I like that. And that's TOO. And on, and on LinkedIn, you can also find her at Allison Pugh. Here comes that pause. I'll be right back. Ho, ho, ho. The holidays are here again, and we all know that gift giving can be a real challenge. This year, instead of giving another book or gift card, I'm giving Nutrafol to those in my life dealing with thinning hair. Giving it as a gift might feel strange, but trust me, they will thank you later. It is a thoughtful, unique gift, perfect for guys and gals. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. From my own lived experience, menopause has affected a lot of things, including hair shedding, thinning, and texture. Thinning hair is different for men and women, so a one-size-fits-all approach to hair growth doesn't cut it. Physician formulated with 100% drug-free ingredients, Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting key root causes of thinning: stress, hormones, aging, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism, all through whole body health, no matter your lifestyle or stage of life. I've been religiously using Nutrafol for more than 2 years. Thanks to Nutrafol, shedding has been significantly reduced, and my hair is now thicker and healthier. Some remarkable bonus side benefits include better sleep, improved stress response, and significantly reduced pesky menopause symptoms, including hot flashes. Building a hair growth routine is simple with Nutrafol. Purchase online, no prescription required. Automated deliveries and free shipping keep you on track. Plus, with your subscription, you'll save up to 20%, access free naturopathic doctor consults, and a Headspace meditation membership is included. Whether you're gifting to yourself or a loved one, give the gift of great hair growth this holiday season. Right now, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off any order. Enjoy free shipping when you subscribe. Go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code HAPPINESSGIFT. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code HAPPINESSGIFT. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code HAPPINESSGIFT. Now let's take that pause. We'll be right back. Harvesting Happiness is rooted in science. Our work facilitates applied positive psychology practices through media and consulting. We're committed to sound ideas for better well-being, leading to increased life satisfaction and a better world for everyone. We're not into pseudoscience or quick fixes. We're focused on common sense backed by rigorous research. Healthy critical thinking is the foundation for our discussions. We encourage you to challenge preconceptions and explore ideas with a curiously discerning mind. Collaboration with our guests is united by an inclusive vision to boost resilience, critical thinking, communication, and problem solving through civilized discourse and pleasurable relational engagement for everyone. Each day, we have the intellectual freedom to be happy or the liberty to be miserable, regardless of external circumstances. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please seek support because good psychological health is vital to the achievement of a healthy and satisfying life. Visit harvestinghappiness.com for psychosocial and educational services that boost emotional and social intelligence. And we're back continuing the conversation with Professor Allison Pugh. She is the author of The Last Human Job, the work of connecting in a disconnected world. Allison, as you were speaking in the first half of the episode, I was thinking about the soul, right? That one thing that feels like it's irreplaceable in an automated or machined environment is the soulfulness that we do have when we're in connection with another person. And then you mentioned something about readers of your book and some perspectives that you've heard on that and how it connects with religion.
Yeah, religious people of faith have contacted me. A lot of them have contacted me about the book. It's an audience that has leapt to embrace it, you could say, because I think it speaks to something that they deeply care about. I don't really talk about soul in the book, but I do talk about the purpose and dignity and understanding that people get from seeing the other and being seen. And I talk about the kind of, I guess scientists would call it like nonverbal communication, but like we might say the vibe or the, kind of teachers called it the spidey sense, like
Ooh.
the way we connect, the energy that is in the room around our connections. So I think that when I hear the word soul, I think of words like, kind of the profound meaning and, sustaining sense of purpose that comes from people connecting and communing together. And that is what this book is about.
Yeah.
How does that happen and who's doing it? And how can, what are the ways we can make that easier and better for them?
And by using the word soul, like I know that it has a connotation of woo-woo, that we might not use that in a professional environment, but in a casual conversation, that element, right? That humanity is something that is not manufactured, right? It's part of the essence of being human. And we tend to relate better with others when we have that soulful connection. You might call it like, oh, I really like their vibe, or I really connected with them. And that's the secret sauce, right? It's
Right. I mean,
intangible.
yes, I love what you're saying. It's part of the issue here is that we need to learn how to value our interactions with each other, our connections to each other. And, like there's a very famous sociologist of, the 100 years ago or more than 100 years ago, Emil Durkheim, and he called it collective effervescence. I don't even think
Ooh.
we need that much collectivity. It could be just two people, but I think two people can produce a kind of effervescence that to many will feel sacred. And and that's not what you can get from kind of just interacting with a machine. Where a machine, you can feel like a machine sees you. People have gone to ChatGPT, asked it a question, and then had the bot come back to them and say, this is whatever, you're talking about this, and here's what we know about that, and how about this? It can feel like conversing with an intelligent other person, but because it is a machine, you're not actually producing this, kind of collective or sacred effervescence. You're really kind of creating something just with yourself. And kind of we have a soul that exists in a vacuum? That's a religious question. But I do feel like these connections really dive down into, or these connections kind of rely on what the magic is that people create together.
It's the emotion feedback loop, right?
Yeah.
That is from human to human exclusively, right? You don't get that from the bot. I mean, the bot can be helpful, if you want to cancel an order that you placed, online. Okay, yeah, I see the value of that. It saves time and money. Point well taken. But if I'm really looking for something, some relational something,
Mm-hmm.
it has to come from that human contact, from that listening, from the energy exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's another word for
Because,
it.
yeah, because we cannot be our own mirrors. We
Yeah,
need other people.
we
And
do.
it feels funny to have to articulate how we need other people, but I did just that. I mean, for example, when I looked into like what this work creates, I found really that it creates kind of dignity and purpose and understanding, and it does that for both the person being seen and the seer. Actually, so I have an example of, for example, a woman who's a nurse practitioner who went to in college. She intended to be a doctor, a physician, but I think she didn't do well in organic chemistry. So went to became a nurse practitioner, but always, she said, kind of struggled with ego problems and kind of, I'm better than this a little. And then one day she was telling me a story about having kind of tending to a homeless man who had almost walked across the country, walked for many, 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 many miles and days. And his feet were full of wounds and cracks, and he was bent over, couldn't look up really, couldn't nobody could look him in the eye even. He was so bent over. And that day, she tells me, she just sat down and took care of his feet and bathed his
Wow.
feet, tended his feet, washed them. And she said it was profound for both of us, because for him, because nobody is seeing him
Yeah.
during his life, during his day-to-day wanderings. And for her, it was a very meaningful act of service that helped to give him dignity and helped her to find her own humanity, so that she found deep purpose in this moment of serving another person. I have a teacher who I spoke to, her Pamela Moore, who told me about when she was growing up. She had something that's called selective mutism. It means children who don't really speak, and they thought she needed special ed. They didn't really know what was going on. Her family moved often every few months. So
Ooh.
it was a very stressful kind of childhood. And one day, a teacher kind of wouldn't give up and just sat and elicited something from her, so that she eventually found out that actually she needed to be put into gifted classes,
Wow.
not special ed. And she said, I want to be that teacher for other kids that she was for me. I want to be that person. And so she's poured herself into this public school in Oakland where she takes the kids camping. She,
Oh,
kind
wow.
of, she does a lot of extra work to try and see them as whole people, even though it's a very high needs school with, I think more than 75% getting free and reduced lunch, et cetera. So these are kind of individual heroes that I admired greatly, but also they were talking about what they get out of it and what they try to give others. And yeah, they were stories of profound meaning.
I think, Allison, that is a perfect place to pause and invite our listeners to join us over on More Mental Fitness at Substack and Medium for the continuation of this conversation. To learn more about Professor Allison Pugh's work, her book, The Last Human Job, the work of connecting in a disconnected world, please go to AllisonPugh.com, on X at Allison_Pugh. Facebook is Allison J. Pugh. Instagram, this is a good one, Allison Pugh2, and that's TOO. And on LinkedIn, you can find her at Allison Pugh. Allison, thank you so much for this soulful human conversation. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Harvesting Happiness today. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen on behalf of my guest, Allison Pugh, wishing you kind thoughts, kinder words, and the kindest of actions. Until next time, remember, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is your inside job. Please go out and rock your day and remember to be kind to one another. Want to explore more sound ideas for better well-being? You can listen to part 2 of this conversation and the Good Citizens Election Season Survival Guide to Restoring Common Sense and Sanity in a Crazy World at More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness on Substack and Medium. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. Harvesting Happiness and More Mental Fitness are produced by Lisa Cypers Kamen, Andrea Mengele, Robin Boyd, Andrea Daly, and the excellent team at Podfly Productions, including Eric Begay, Kimberly Beck, and Alec Guest, in collaboration with TogiNet Radio, KBUU, RadioMalibu.net, and is available on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange.